the Kansas prairie, endless golden wheat fields stretching to the horizon, rolling hills, scattered farmhouses, maybe a few cattle grazing. It's peaceful. Quintessentially American heartland, about as landlocked as you can get. But yet, at one time, it was unrecognizable compared to now. 85 million years ago, Kansas wasn't farmland. It was underwater. Not shallow coastal water, deep ocean, hundreds of feet deep. And swimming through those waters were some of the most terrifying predators to ever exist. Mosasaurs the size of buses, sharks with teeth like daggers, giant fish that could swallow you whole. And yet, despite all of this, the water was still safer than land. Because while the ocean had its monsters, the land was worse. So much worse that evolution actually pushed creatures back into the water just to escape. Welcome to the late Cretaceous Western Interior Seaway. The only time in Earth's history when the ocean was legitimately the safer option. When marine predators were terrifying, sure, but the terrestrial apex predators were so dominant, so widespread, so nightmarishly efficient that even giant reptiles said, "No thanks, I'll take my chances with the sharks." This is the story of when water became a refuge. When the seas were full of death, but the land was somehow worse. And when one of the strangest ecological inversions in history created an underwater highway through the heart of North America. Let's dive in. First, let's set the stage. Because the Western Interior Seaway is one of the most fascinating geological features in Earth's history. And most people have never heard of it. 85 million years ago, during the late Cretaceous, North America was split in half. Not by a river, not by a valley, by an entire ocean. The Western Interior Seaway stretched from the Arctic Ocean in the north all the way down to the Gulf of Mexico in the south. It was about 2,000 miles long and 600 miles wide at its maximum extent. That's roughly the size of the Mediterranean Sea, cutting straight through the middle of the continent. On the western shore, the early Rocky Mountains were forming. Volcanic activity, tectonic uplift, mountain building in real time. On the eastern shore, the Appalachian Mountains, already ancient by this point, eroding slowly, and between them, a warm, shallow sea teeming with life and death. Now, seaways like this aren't uncommon in Earth's history. When sea levels rise, low-lying areas flood. Continents get divided. But the Western Interior Seaway was special for one reason. It existed during the absolute peak of dinosaur dominance. The late Cretaceous was when dinosaurs reached their maximum diversity, their largest sizes, and their most specialized adaptations. Tyrannosaurus rex, Triceratops, Ankylosaurus, hadrosaurs the size of elephants, and all of these creatures lived on the land surrounding the seaway, making the shores of this inland ocean some of the most dangerous real estate in Earth's history. So, what happened when animals needed to cross? When food was on the other side? When migration routes demanded it? They didn't walk, they swam, and many of them never came back to land. Let's talk about the water first. Because the Western Interior Seaway wasn't some peaceful lake, it was an ocean, and it had ocean problems. Starting with the apex predators, the undisputed kings of the seaway, the mosasaurs. Now, if you've seen Jurassic World, you know mosasaurs. Massive marine reptiles, powerful jaws, streamlined bodies. The movie honestly didn't exaggerate much. These things were legitimately terrifying. The Western Interior Seaway was home to multiple mosasaur species, but the largest and most fearsome was Tylosaurus proriger, and this animal was an absolute monster. Adult Tylosaurus reached lengths of 45 feet. That's longer than a school bus, longer than most humpback whales. And unlike whales, which are gentle filter feeders, Tylosaurus was a hypercarnivore. Everything about it was designed to kill. The skull alone was 6 feet long. The jaws could open absurdly wide. And the teeth, rows of recurved, blade-like teeth designed to puncture and hold prey. Not chew, just grab and swallow. And we have direct fossil evidence of what Tylosaurus ate. Fish, other mosasaurs, plesiosaurs, giant sea turtles, sharks, basically anything that swam. But here's the crazy part. We've also found dinosaur bones inside Tylosaurus stomachs. Hadrosaur remains, partially digested, which means Tylosaurus was hunting dinosaurs, either catching them while they swam across the seaway or scavenging bodies that washed into the water. And Tylosaurus wasn't alone. The seaway had at least 6 other mosasaur species. Different sizes, different hunting strategies, niche partitioning in action. Smaller mosasaurs like Platecarpus hunted fish and squid. Medium-sized ones like Cladastes went after larger fish and marine reptiles. And the giants like Tylosaurus? They hunted everything. But the mosasaurs weren't the only predators. The seaway also had sharks. Lots of sharks. Cretoxorhina mantelli, the Ginsu shark, named after the kitchen knives because its teeth were so sharp they could slice through bone. And this thing was massive. Up to 25 feet long, about the size of a modern great white. Fossil evidence shows Cretoxorhina regularly attacked plesiosaurs. We've found plesiosaur bones with Cretoxorhina bite marks. Clean cuts through vertebrae, this shark could literally saw through backbones. And then there were the fish. Giant predatory fish like Xiphactinus. This thing was 15 to 20 feet long. Had massive fangs. And we found fossils of Xiphactinus that died with entire 6-foot fish still inside their stomachs. They swallowed prey half their size whole. So let me recap. The western interior seaway had bus-sized mosasaurs, great white-sized sharks, and fish that could swallow you in one gulp. Terrifying, right? You'd never want to swim there. And yet, animals still chose the water over land, because the land was somehow worse. So, what made the land so dangerous? One word: tyrannosaurs. The late Cretaceous. North American coastline was tyrannosaur country. And I'm not just talking about Tyrannosaurus rex. The famous king didn't appear until the very end of the Cretaceous. Before that, the western interior seaway shores were patrolled by earlier tyrannosaurs that were just as deadly. On the western shore, you had Albertosaurus. Slightly smaller than T-Rex, but faster, more agile, and possibly a pack hunter. Fossil evidence from bone beds in Alberta suggests Albertosaurus hunted in groups, multiple individuals of different ages dying together. Pack-hunting tyrannosaurs. Let that sink in. On the eastern shore, you had Appalachiosaurus, a medium-sized tyrannosaur that dominated the eastern forests. Not as large as its western cousins, but still a formidable apex predator. And later, when T-Rex finally appeared, it became the most dominant land predator in Earth's history. 9 tons of muscle. Bite force estimated at 12,000 pounds per square inch. That's 3 times stronger than a great white shark. Strong enough to crush a car. But the tyrannosaurs weren't the only terrestrial threats. The seaway shores were packed with other large predators. Dromaeosaurs, raptors. Not the Jurassic Park kind. Smaller, but still dangerous. Pack hunters with sickle claws designed to disembowel prey. And then there were the environmental challenges. The coastlines were swampy, hot, humid, infested with insects. Crocodilians lurked in estuaries, and food competition was intense. Herds of hadrosaurs, ceratopsians, and ankylosaurs dominated the herbivore niches, which meant predators had to be big, fast, and aggressive to survive. The land was a brutal competition, a constant struggle for survival. But the water, The water had space. The seaway was enormous, 600 miles wide. Prey was abundant. Fish, ammonites, squid. And yes, marine reptiles competed, but the competition was spread out over a vast area. And crucially, the marine predators were ambush hunters. They waited, conserved energy, didn't patrol territories aggressively like land predators did. So, for a large reptile looking to escape terrestrial competition, the seaway was actually the better option. And we have proof. Because multiple lineages of reptiles independently returned to the water during the Cretaceous. Let's talk about these returners. The animals that said land life is too dangerous and went back to the ocean. First, the mosasaurs themselves. Because mosasaurs didn't start as marine reptiles. They evolved from terrestrial monitor lizards. Somewhere in the early Cretaceous, a population of land-dwelling lizards moved to coastal environments, started hunting in shallow water, and over millions of years became fully aquatic. Their legs turned into flippers. Their tails became propulsion organs. They lost the ability to walk on land entirely, and they thrived. Mosasaurs became the dominant marine predators of the late Cretaceous, outcompeting sharks in many environments, spreading globally, all because the ocean was less competitive than land. Second, plesiosaurs. Now, plesiosaurs had been marine for much longer than mosasaurs. They'd been in the ocean since the Triassic, but during the Cretaceous they reached their peak diversity in the western interior seaway. Long-necked elasmosaurs, short-necked pliosaurs, all thriving in the seaway. And fossil evidence suggests they bred in the seaway as well. Gave birth to live young in the water, never returned to land. Third, sea turtles. Modern sea turtles evolved during the Cretaceous, and the western interior seaway was a major evolutionary hotspot for them. Archelon, the largest turtle ever. Shell 12 feet long, weighed over 2 tons, lived in the seaway, fed on jellyfish and ammonites. And again, sea turtles evolved from terrestrial turtles. They returned to the water, and in the seaway they flourished. Fourth, and most surprisingly, some dinosaurs. Now, I'm not saying dinosaurs became fully aquatic, but we have evidence that some species were semi-aquatic. Spinosaurus is the famous example, though it lived in Africa, not North America, but the principle applies. A massive theropod that spent significant time in water, hunting fish, avoiding terrestrial competition. And in the western interior seaway region, we've found hadrosaur fossils with adaptations suggesting they were comfortable in water. Deep tails for swimming, dense bones for buoyancy control. They likely waded and swam frequently. Why? Because the water was safer. Fewer predators per square mile, more escape routes, and abundant aquatic vegetation to eat. The seaway created an ecological refuge, a place where reptiles could avoid the hyper-competitive terrestrial ecosystems and carve out niches in a rich marine environment. And this is unique, because in almost every other time period in Earth's history, the ocean is more dangerous than land, more predators, harsher conditions, less oxygen in deeper waters. But during the late Cretaceous, the equation flipped. Now, let's talk about why this inversion happened, because it's not random. There are specific ecological and environmental factors that made the seaway safer than land. First, predator density. On land, tyrannosaurs were everywhere. They dominated every terrestrial ecosystem in North America. High population density, aggressive territorial behavior, constant hunting pressure. But in the seaway, even though mosasaurs were apex predators, they were spread out over a massive area. 2,000 miles long, 600 miles wide. That's over 1 million square miles of water. Compare that to terrestrial territories. A single tyrannosaur might control an area of a few hundred square miles. The predator density was much higher on land. Second, prey abundance. The seaway was incredibly productive. Warm water, nutrient-rich. Plankton blooms supported massive fish populations. Ammonites were everywhere. Squid, belemnites. The food web was dense and stable. On land, prey populations fluctuated with seasons. Droughts, fires, competition for vegetation. The terrestrial food supply was less reliable. Third, environmental stability. The seaway maintained relatively consistent temperatures year-round. Warm water, stable currents, predictable conditions. Land environments were harsher. Temperature extremes, seasonal droughts, wildfires, floods. The terrestrial climate was more volatile. And fourth, escape options. In the water, if a prey animal detected a predator, it could dive deep, swim in any direction, use three-dimensional space for evasion. On land, prey was limited to 2 dimensions, couldn't fly, couldn't burrow quickly, had to outrun predators on foot. So the seaway offered more escape routes, more hiding places, better survival odds. All of these factors combined created an ecological inversion. The water became the safer environment, and evolution responded. Multiple lineages returned to aquatic life, adapted to marine conditions, and thrived. But this didn't last forever, because around 66 million years ago, the asteroid hit, the Chicxulub impact, the end of the Cretaceous, and the Western Interior Seaway. It didn't survive. The asteroid impact triggered massive climate change. Global temperatures swung wildly, sea levels dropped, and the seaway began to drain. Within a few 100,000 years, the seaway was gone. The two halves of North America reconnected, and the unique marine ecosystem that had existed for millions of years disappeared. The mosasaurs went extinct. Not just in the seaway, globally, every species, gone. The plesiosaurs, extinct. Ammonites, extinct. The sharks and fish? Many species survived, but the seaway populations died out. The asteroid didn't just kill the dinosaurs, it killed the entire ecosystem, marine and terrestrial. And when life recovered in the Paleocene, the ecological dynamic shifted back to normal. The land became safer than the water. Mammals diversified on land, and marine ecosystems took millions of years to rebuild. The Western Interior Seaway was never re-established. Even when sea levels rose again, the geography had changed. The conditions that created it were gone. And the ecological inversion? The time when water was safer than land? It ended permanently. The late Cretaceous Western Interior Seaway was a unique moment in Earth's history, a brief period where the normal rules were reversed, where the ocean was a refuge instead of a threat, and we'll probably never see anything like it again. So, let's bring it full circle. Modern Kansas, landlocked, peaceful, a place where the biggest danger is maybe a tornado or a bad harvest. But 66 million years ago, it was the bottom of a shallow sea, patrolled by mosasaurs longer than buses, hunted by sharks with teeth like steak knives, filled with predatory fish that could swallow you whole. And yet, despite all of that, it was still the safer option. Because on the shores, tyrannosaurs ruled with absolute dominance. Pack-hunting raptors coordinated kills. Competition for resources was brutal and constant. The land was a death trap. The water was merely dangerous. And that ecological inversion drove some of the most fascinating evolutionary adaptations in the Mesozoic. Lizards became sea serpents. Turtles became giants. Even dinosaurs waded into the water to escape. All because, for one brief moment in Earth's history, the normal rules didn't apply. The Western Interior Seaway was an anomaly, a geographical oddity that created an ecological oddity. And when it disappeared, so did the unique ecosystems it supported. We'll never see conditions like that again. The continents have moved. Sea levels are different. and the dinosaurs are gone. But the fossils remain in Kansas, in Montana, in Alberta, scattered across the plains. Reminders of a time when an ocean cut through North America. When mosasaurs hunted where wheat fields now grow, and when water, for once, was the safer choice. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this exploration of one of prehistory's strangest ecological inversions, make sure to subscribe to the channel. We've got tons more deep dives into Earth's weirdest moments coming. Hit that notification bell so you never miss when we uncover the next bizarre chapter of natural history. And drop a comment telling me which prehistoric ecosystem you want covered next. Personally, I'm voting for the Carboniferous coal forests. Because when dragonflies have 2-foot wingspans and millipedes are the size of cars, that's a world worth exploring. Until next time, keep diving into Earth's incredible prehistoric past with us, and maybe appreciate that in our current world, the ocean is absolutely the more dangerous option. Because if you're choosing between sharks and grizzly bears, I'll take the bears every time. At least they can't follow me into deep water. Though, to be fair, in the late Cretaceous, that logic would have gotten you killed.